Hey guys, we are going to continue along with our novel, Hachiko Waits by Leslea Newman. For those of you that are just starting to follow us, in order to catch up to where we are, you'll need to watch the previous, I believe, 3 videos. I think that's about right. Maybe 4. I'm not sure. 3 or 4. Just look for Teacher with a Hat. I believe it actually just says 3rd grade teacher reading Hachiko Waits or something to that effect. Anyway, for those of you that have been following us, you're probably anxious to see what happens with Hachiko. For those of you that are just starting, don't let this spoil you. You need to go back to the first video and follow us from there. So, but once again, our story is Hachiko Waits, and it is about a very, very loyal, devoted dog named Hachi. And he is an Akita, as you can see. And this happened in Japan in 1924. It is a true story. And it is an amazingly wonderful story and very touching. I will put links in the description box below for if you would like to purchase the book for yourself, which I totally recommend, or the video, which would be awesome. So it is absolutely an amazing movie, and I would highly recommend it. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We are on chapter 9, and we actually only have a couple chapters to go. So I tried to stretch this out for 2 weeks. It's not going to be in completely 2 weeks. So what I'm going to do is I'll read these last 2 chapters, and I have several activities that you can do. First of all, today I put up the vocabulary words that goes along with this, and there's some activities though that I still need to put up. I need to put up the chapter summaries and the understanding the story of 7 through 10. But I will wait till I finish this, and then I will upload those, and then I will also upload, there is several different activities that you can do that goes along with it, and I will upload those for you as well on Google Classroom for those of you and that are just starting to follow us. Remember, go back to the first video and to really be able to follow the story and kind of catch the momentum of everything that happens. So I don't have any pets to show today. I thought about it, but I thought, it's so late. I didn't get to do it earlier today like I planned on. I didn't get to do the filming. So since I think it's like 10:30 or something, and so several of you are probably already in bed. So you probably won't see this till tomorrow, but that's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start. Remember, Hachiko Waits by Leslea Newman. One spring day, a few weeks after the cherry blossoms had bloomed, Yasuo arrived at the train station a little before 3 o'clock. He was 16 years old now, and he wore a handsome navy blue uniform and a cap bearing his school's emblem over the brim. As soon as he stepped off the train, he went to see the station master. "Come to my office, Yasuo, and I will get you some food for Hachiko." The station master moved slowly now, and his hair was as white as the rice he scooped into Hachiko's bowl. "Today is a very special day. Do you know why?" Yasuo thought for a minute. It was the 5th day of the 5th month. "It is Tango no Seku," he said to the station master. "Yes, it is Boys' Day," Mr. Yoshikawa said. "But there is another reason why today is special." Yasuo thought again. "Is it your birthday?" he asked. "No." "Is it Hachiko's birthday?" "No, but it does have something to do with Hachiko. Today marks exactly 10 years that Hachiko has been waiting for the professor." Remember, this is a true story. This actually happened. If you look it up on the internet, you can read more about Hachi and actually see, I don't think that they're in here. Do they have the real life? No. The real life photos of Hachi, they do not have. But and you'll also see a statue that was erected in his name. There's one in Japan. I'm trying to think. I think that's the only one, the one that's in Japan. But it's amazing. And they actually put it up at the train station where this happened. 10 years? Yasuo shook his head. "There has never been a dog as loyal as Hachiko," he said to the station master. Yasuo took Hachiko's bowl of food and walked over to the platform. Hachiko was lying on his side with his head resting on the ground. He was an old dog now, and the golden brown fur around his his muzzle had turned white. His left ear had begun to droop several years ago and was now almost bent in half. Hachiko had grown thin and was no longer able to sit up tall and straight. Sometimes he was too tired to climb the steps to the train station, and the yakitori vendor and the station master had to help him do it. Often he would be lying on the platform when Yasuo arrived. Sometimes he was even asleep. "Hello, Hachiko," Yasuo said in a gentle voice as he squatted down to pet the dog's side. He could feel Hachiko's ribs beneath his fur. "Wake up, little friend," Yasuo said. "Do you know it has been 10 years that you have waited for the professor?" The Akita opened his eyes and stared at Yasuo, but he did not lift his head. "Hello, little friend. What a good dog you are," Yasuo said softly. "What a fine dog you are. Hachiko, you are the best dog in all of Japan." If you remember, that's what the professor used to say to Hachi, I believe, in chapter 1, I believe it was. It's amazing. As he stroked the side of Hachiko's face with his fingertips, the dog's right ear tilted forward at the sound of an approaching train. "Do you want to get up, Hachiko?" Yasuo asked. Hachiko looked at Yasuo, and then with great effort he struggled to his feet. The train appeared around the bend of the tracks, pulled up to the platform, and ground to a loud stop. Hachiko looked at it, sat up as tall and straight as he could, and opened his mouth. "One! Hachiko barked loudly. One! Then, all his strength gone, he sighed a great sigh and collapsed to the ground. "Hachiko!" Yasuo cried as he watched the dog take a few shuddering breaths. His chest heaved up and down once, twice, 3 times, and then was still. Yasuo ran to get the station master. "Hurry, we must help him," he cried. Mr. Yoshikawa came running. He knelt down by the dog and stroked Hachiko's great head. "It is too late," he said. His voice filled with sorrow. Excuse me. A small crowd gathered around Hachiko's body. The yakitori vendor took off his happy jacket and handed it to Yasuo with a silent bow. Yasuo took the jacket and tenderly covered the dog with it. Then he turned his head and blinked his eyes rapidly. He was almost a grown man now, and he did not want to cry. "Come with me," Mr. Yoshikawa said. He brought Yasuo into his office and had him sit down in a chair. The station master pulled up another chair for himself, and the two friends sat together, side by side, without speaking, each deep in thought. After a while, the station master looked at Yasuo. "We feel sad for ourselves because we will not see Hachiko anymore," he said. "But there is a reason to feel happy, too." "What is there to feel happy about?" Yasuo asked, his eyes brimming with tears. "Hachiko is no longer old, and he is no longer tired," answered Mr. Yoshikawa, who was a bit old and tired himself. "He has left his body, but his spirit is in a better place now." "Do you really think so?" asked Yasuo. "I will tell you what I think," the station master said. "Though it is far from traditional, it may even sound foolish." Mr. Yoshikawa paused and waited while a train pulled into the station. "Do you hear that train?" he asked. Yasuo nodded. "I have been around trains all my life," Mr. Yoshikawa said, "and I have come to believe that there is a special train to bring those who have obtained enlightenment up to heaven. Every day for the past 10 years, Professor Ueno has met this special train to see if his beloved Akita-kun is on it. Day after day after day, he has waited up in heaven, just as Hachiko has waited here on earth. And today, when the special train reaches heaven and opens its doors, Hachiko will be the first one to step out. Just think how happy he will be to see his master again." Yasuo smiled. "He will lick the professor's fingers and then run in circles and make himself dizzy." Mr. Yoshikawa smiled too and brushed away a tear. "I will miss him very much." Yasuo nodded and wiped his wet cheeks. "So will I." Here's a sad illustration. As you can see, it's Hachiko. That's where they got the happy jacket and they were going to put it on him. The station master, right here, Yasuo. And you can see the mournful looks of the people behind him. This always, since I'm such a big animal lover, this is always sometimes a little hard for me to read. I always cry with the movie. Oh, it's bad. So I'm very, very touched by anything to do with animals and pets. And so, yeah, that's Mrs. Ingram. The day after Hachiko died, Yasuo came to the train station as he always did. He was so used to visiting Hachiko and the station master, he did not know what else to do. So he sat down on a wooden bench near the train tracks and looked at the passengers as they exited their trains. As he watched, 2 women dressed in flowered kimonos stepped onto the platform. They turned eagerly toward Hachiko's waiting place. When they saw that he was not there, they looked at each other in confusion. Yasuo rose from his bench and walked over to them. "Hachiko's heart stopped beating yesterday," he said, bowing his head with grief. "I am so sorry," both women said at once. "The Akita-kun has died?" A student holding a stack of books in his arms stopped in his tracks, stunned. "Chukun Hachiko is no longer with us," a young mother told her son. Word of Hachiko's death spread quickly through Shibuya Station. As each train pulled up to the platform, the people who stepped off looked to Hachiko's spot as if they could not believe what they were being told. The expressions on their faces turned from hope to pain and sorrow as they saw that the news was true. It was almost more than Yasuo could bear. Yasuo returned to the wooden bench and sat down wearily. He looked at Hachiko's spot and then shut his eyes. If only when he opened them he would see his little friend sitting up, tail straight, among the crowd, his gaze fixed on the train tracks as he waited for his master. Yasuo squeezed his eyes shut even more tightly and then opened them again, hoping for a miracle. But Hachiko's spot was as empty as it had been just moments before. Even though many people were getting off their trains, no one walked over the place where Hachiko had once waited. Yasuo slumped down on the bench, stared straight ahead, and watched person after person walk around Hachiko's spot, just as they had when he was alive. And then he got an idea. He went to Mr. Yoshikawa's office and asked his friend to come sit with him on the wooden bench. "I have just thought of a way to bring Hachiko back," Yasuo said. Mr. Yoshikawa looked at him, his eyebrows knitted together in puzzlement. "How?" he asked. "Do you see the people getting off their trains?" asked Yasuo. The station master nodded. "Do you see how everyone looks at the spot where Hachiko used to sit?" The station master nodded again. "What if we built a statue of Hachiko and placed it on his spot?" Yasuo asked. "Then he will always be with us." "That is a wonderful idea," said Mr. Yoshikawa. "But where will we find the money to pay for it?" "Excuse me, I do not mean to intrude," said a man wearing thick black frame glasses. "But I could not help overhearing your conversation. I do not have much money, but I miss seeing Hachiko sitting there. I will give you what I can to help build the statue." And with that, the man pressed a small silver coin with a hole in the middle, worth 5 sen, into station master's white-gloved hand. "I will give something too," a woman said, opening her pocketbook. More and more people donated money, and again a story about Hachiko was printed in the newspaper. People from all over Japan were so moved by the tale of the loyal, faithful dog that they had sent as much money as they could. After more newspaper stories were written, more people heard about Hachiko. People from as far as near as the next street over and as far away as the United States all sent money to help pay for a statue to be placed at Shibuya Station. By the time the summer rains had ended, enough money had been collected to pay for the statue. After much discussion, a well-respected sculptor was selected for the job. He came to the train station to speak with Yasuo. "Tell me about Hachiko," said the artist. "I understand you knew him best." "This is where he waited," Yasuo said, showing the man the place where Hachiko used to sit. "And when he sat up, the top of his head came to about here." He put the flat of his hand up to his hip. His eyes were deep-set and small, and his ears were shaped like triangles. "Yes, I have seen pictures in the newspaper," said the artist. "Can you tell me something about him I could not see in a photograph?" Yasuo thought for a moment. Hachiko was completely devoted to Professor Ueno, he said. Many people wanted to adopt him, but he would not give his heart to anyone but his master. "Ah, that is very helpful," said the sculptor, nodding. "He was kind to all and treated everyone in the same manner," Yasuo went on. "It did not matter if you were a child or an adult. It did not matter if you were a man or a woman. It did not matter if you were rich or poor. If you wanted to touch Hachiko's fur for luck, he would allow it. He was gentle with everyone. He got upset only when someone tried to move him from his waiting spot." "I see," said the artist. "Is there anything else?" Yasuo shut his eyes and a picture of Hachiko arose in his mind. "He was always very dignified," he said, swallowing hard. "Even at the end, when he could not sit up tall and straight, he always did his best." "Arigato, Yasuo," the man said. "I now have what I need," and with a bow of thanks, he left the station. Arigato is thank you in Japanese. The sculptor went to his studio at once. Day after day after day, he locked himself inside his workspace, but he would not permit anyone to enter. "I will let you know when the sculpture is finished," he said, whenever anyone came to his door. Month after month went by, and still there was no word from the sculptor. Almost a whole year had passed since the day Hachiko had died, and it was spring again. Then right after the cherry blossoms bloomed and fell from the trees, the artist announced that the statue was ready. It was covered with a white cloth and brought to Shibuya Station, where a great ceremony was held. Trains scheduled to enter the station were halted between 3 and 4 o'clock. People started arriving at 2:30, and by the time Yasuo and his parents reached the station, an enormous crowd had gathered. People spilled over from the platform into the train station, down the steps, and onto the street. Yasuo struggled to move through the solid wall of people like a carp swimming upstream. He looked back over his shoulder several times to make sure his mother and father were following him. At last they reached the platform and made their way over to the station master, who was standing next to Hachiko's waiting spot. "There are so many people here," Yasuo said in amazement. Yes, said Mr. Yoshikawa. There are teachers and students from Tokyo Imperial University who knew Professor Ueno. There are commuters who knew Chukan Hachiko. He pointed to a group of men holding their notebooks and cameras. And there are also reporters. At precisely 3 o'clock, a Shinto priest began the ceremony by saying a prayer that expressed gratitude for the ancestors. Then he asked that those gathered before him will be blessed with health, happiness, prosperity, and protection. Next, a man who had taught at the university alongside Professor Ueno said a few words. Professor Isaburo Ueno loved the earth, and he loved all the plants, trees, and flowers that grow upon it, said the professor's colleagues. He loved to teach, and he loved his students, but most of all, he loved his golden brown Akitakin. The artist who had created the sculpture was next to address the crowd. Many of you have been curious about what I have been doing for the past year, he said. You wondered why no noise came from my studio, and why no supplies were carried in or out. This is because I had to prepare myself for the great task I was given. He gestured towards the statue, still hidden from view under its cloth. I needed to sit still for many, many hours, just as Hachiko sat, in order to understand him and appreciate him, the artist said. Only after I had experienced enough stillness and solitude did I feel ready to begin, and then I knew at once exactly what to do. Finally, Mr. Yoshikawa spoke. First, he thanked everyone who had donated money to build Hachiko's statue. Without each and every one of you, this would not be possible, he said, spreading his arms wide. Then he motioned for Yasuo to join him. I would like to present Yasuo Takahashi, the station master said to the people standing on the platform. He was a great friend to Hachiko, and I am sure he has something to say. Yasuo stood still and looked at the station master. Mr. Yoshikawa nodded and motioned again. They are waiting, Yasuo, Mr. Takahashi whispered to his son. Just say what is in your heart, Mrs. Takahashi added. Yasuo took a deep breath, stepped in front of the statue, and bowed his respects to the crowd. Hachiko taught us many things, he began, but then he had to stop. His voice was thick with tears, and his words sounded broken and shaky. Yasuo blinked his eyes and swallowed hard. The train station, usually such a noisy place, was completely quiet as Yasuo struggled to calm himself. He looked into the crowd and noticed a little boy in a navy blue sailor suit holding his mother's hand. The boy looked to be about 5 years old, the same age Yasuo was on the day he first met the professor and Hachiko. When the little boy saw Yasuo looking at him, his face broke into a smile. Yasuo smiled back and felt brave enough to go on. Hachiko taught us that we must never give up. Oh, wow. I forgot about this one. This is like a sea of people. See all the faces? There's the statue right there. Like I said, go on to Google and type in Hachiko or just even Hachi, and you will see, obviously the book will come up, the movie will come up, but the true story will also come up, and they'll actually show real photos of Hachiko. Yasuo said, he taught us about loyalty and devotion. He taught us about hope and faith. He taught us about patience and responsibility. But above all, Hachiko taught us the true meaning of friendship. It is for these reasons we honor him today. Yasuo moved closer to the statue and asked Mr. Yoshikawa to join him. Together, they removed the cloth and stepped back. Everyone gasped. The Akitakin made of bronze raised high on the pedestal was Hachiko, sitting up tall and straight, his right ear thrust forward, his left ear drooping down, his eyes staring ahead. Yasuo reached up to stroke the sculpture, half expecting to feel soft fur instead of hard metal beneath his fingertips. What a good dog you are, Yasuo whispered to the statue. What a fine dog you are, Hachiko. You are the best dog in all of Japan. This next section is an epilogue. That's the end of the novel. This next section is an epilogue and takes place 4 years later, New Year's Day, 1939. This is, like I said, this is after he died, 4 years later. To celebrate the new year, the entrance to Shibuya Station was decorated with pine tree branches to symbolize strength and bamboo to symbolize virtue. Yasuo, now a 20-year-old student at Tokyo Imperial University, climbed the stairs to the station carrying a gift of sweet mochi cakes wrapped in a blue furoshiki to give to Mr. Yoshikawa for the holiday. There was a long line of travelers waiting to see the station master. Yasuo stepped out onto the platform and sat down on the wooden bench across from Hachiko's statue to wait for his friend. Where Yasuo sat was now known as the Hachiko side of the train station. It was not uncommon to hear one person say to another, "I will see you at Hachiko statue after work," or "Meet me at Hachiko at 6 o'clock." As Yasuo looked toward Hachiko's statue, he noticed a girl about his own age. She was tall, slender, and very pretty. Her cheeks were bright with cold. Her hair was fastened with an ornament of white paper flowers, and she wore an elegant silk kimono embroidered with delicate plum blossoms. The girl stood with her back to Hachiko, glancing to her right and to her left. She looked up at the big clock hanging from the ceiling inside the train station and tapped her foot. Yasuo kept his eye on the girl as she waited. He knew it was rude to stare, but he could not turn away. The girl was scowling now, her forehead furrowed and her lips pointing down. Yasuo scowled as well. As Yasuo gazed at her, the girl looked at the clock one last time, thrust her hands on her hips, and walked away. Before he knew what he was doing, he jumped to his feet. "Wait!" he cried. The girl turned around and smiled. Yasuo noticed she had a dimple in her left cheek. It disappeared quickly when the girl saw a stranger had called to her. She turned on her heels and started out of the station. "Wait!" Yasuo called again. "I know I am not the one you are waiting for," he said as he caught up to her. "But I would be honored if you would take a walk with me." He lowered his eyes and bowed. "My name is Yasuo Takahashi. Come, ask the station master. He will tell you I am respectable." He led her inside the station over to Mr. Yoshikawa's office. "Happy New Year," Yasuo said, bowing to his friend. He gave Mr. Yoshikawa the gift he had brought. "I would like you to meet." "My name is Miyuki," the girl said with a bow to the station master. "I am pleased to meet you, Mr. Yoshikawa said, returning the bow. "And I am pleased to see you have met my friend Yasuo. He is a fine young man, patient and devoted, loyal and responsible, known far and wide for his kindness." Mr. Yoshikawa smiled broadly, "And he is about to be rewarded for a very kind thing he did many years ago." The station master winked at Yasuo. "Make sure you tell Miyuki all about your friend Hachiko." "The faithful dog?" Miyuki asked. "Did you know him?" "Yes, I did," said Yasuo, leading Miyuki out of the station. As they walked, he told her all about Hachiko, and even though the day was windy and cold, they walked and talked all afternoon. Here's a beautiful illustration. Yasuo, Miyuki, and this beautiful statue of Hachiko. I read multiple stories about Hachi, and if I'm not mistaken, this bronze statue, of course, obviously it was erected, okay, this was in 1934, I want to say, no, 1939, so 1935 must have been when they actually did the statue, because that said 4 years later after the ceremony. Anyway, I had read that they had to rebuild a new statue because I want to say one of the wars, I could have swore that I heard that one of the wars they actually had to melt down the bronze to actually use as ammunition. Whether or not that's true, I'm not sure. I'll have to check my facts and see if that actually was accurate or not. But I did read about that. But it's been standing there for a really long time. And like I said, go to the internet and you can see real pictures of everything, which is really cool. Yasuo and Miyuki spent the next afternoon together and the afternoon after that as well. Soon they were spending all their time together. Soon they fell in love. Yasuo and Miyuki were together in the spring when the cherry blossoms bloomed, and in the summer when the rains came. They were together in the fall when the leaves changed color, and in the winter when the snow fell. If you notice, he used the same words as when he was talking about Hachi, and when he walked with his master for several years, and then also after his master passed away, the professor, he would sit and wait for him at the train station. Talk about devoted. Yasuo brought Miyuki home to meet his family. His mother and father thought she was a fine young woman. Miyuki brought Yasuo home to meet her family. Her mother and father thought he was a fine young man. A year passed, and Yasuo asked Miyuki to meet him at Hachiko statue in Shibuya Station on New Year's Day at 3 o'clock. He said he had something very important to ask her. Yasuo arrived at the station at 5 minutes to 3. He stood there beside Hachiko, looking to his right, to his left, and to his right again, searching the steady stream of travelers for the one face that would make his belly tremble with joy. At last he saw Miyuki coming toward him, and the sight of her made his own face light up like the sun. "Hello, Miyuki," Yasuo said. He took both her hands in his and stared into her lovely dark eyes. "Hello, Yasuo," Miyuki said. "What is it you have to ask me?" Yasuo cleared his throat several times before he spoke. Miyuki, he said, soon I will finish my studies. And then Yasuo squeezed her hands tightly. And then, will you marry me? I promise that if you say yes, I will be as devoted to you as Hachiko was to Professor Ueno for all the days of my life. Yasuo and Miyuki both turned toward the statue of Hachiko sitting up tall and proud. Then they turned back towards each other. Miyuki looked into Yasuo's eyes, her lips curved up into a smile, and the dimple he loved so well appeared in her left cheek. Yes, Yasuo, I will marry you, she said, her voice full of happiness, and I promise that for all the days of my life, I will be as devoted to you as you were to Chukan Hachiko, the faithful dog of Japan. That's it, guys. I was trying to see, and I don't think there is any in here. Let me just see. No, there's not. I was trying to see if there was any more photos, but there is not. That's the end of our story, our lovely story, Hachiko Waits. If you guys liked this, give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. If you would like me to read you guys some more stories, I would be more than happy to. I could maybe either start a new one tomorrow, or I've been telling you guys for several videos now that I'll do some science videos. I just haven't had the opportunity because I need a nice big space to do it so that I can kind of set the camera up and film what I'm doing. But once again, I hope you enjoyed this story. It's one of Mrs. Ingram's absolute favorites. I love it. I never get tired of it. And there's a ton of stories. I know this year I read most of you guys all the stories about fudge, and I know you loved those. But I'm sure I could probably find a new series or even an excellent novel that I can start reading for you guys. And I miss you so much. Like I said, I don't know if we'll get to see each other again or not. Hopefully we will. But I'm blessed that for those of you that are able to watch this, able to respond on Google Classroom and just keep up with things. And I hope to see you soon. I really do, guys. But if not, obviously you'll see me next year. But hopefully, I mean, maybe in a few weeks, who knows. So I love you guys. Bye.